back to Michigan Matters, where the roundtable is convened as Dick DeVos has moved with me from the other set. Next to him is Bankole Thompson, senior editor of the Michigan Chronicle, and Democratic card-carrying member and union supporter, Wayne County Executive Robert Bob Ficano. Bankole, before we're going to move on with this conversation in a moment, but your thoughts about this whole conversation of the right-to-work legislation now being part, we're the 24th state to adopt it in the country. Your thoughts?
I think it's surprising, it's shocking, it's alarming, because beyond even the right to work is the anti-abortion bills, culture war.
We're going to get to that. Don't yeah. This is a lame duck session, so some crazy things.
What stands out is that Governor Snyder said this was divisive. He doesn't want it. And the other issue is the lack of public debate on an issue that affects majority people here. So, I mean, if you're going to pass a legislation, why not have a public debate? No town halls, no public debates on this issue. And just to pass this legislation like the Night of the Long Knives, I think it's really troubling. And the other issue is, you know, when you come out and say, it's one thing if you said 2 decades ago that you were not interested in this issue, but you just said it about a few months ago.
Well, and I know that the governor,
what's the epiphany? Why the change now?
Right. Well, when the governor had his press conference where he announced he had signed the bills, he pointed out the proposal 2, which made its way on, which in his book opened up this conversation to say, okay, the time is right to do this thing. Do you think this would have happened without Proposal 2?
I don't know if you can use Proposal 2 as a legitimate argument for this, because I'm not only going to stake at the right to work, but the other legislations that are following this. I mean, it's really troubling. The question becomes, does Michigan now go into the map as Arizona and other states that are not really, really welcoming, that have become the battleground for culture war? So,
Dick, your thoughts? You're here, detractors here on all this.
No, I mean, I respectfully disagree with the distinguished gentleman. This is a great new opportunity for Michigan to move forward. Freedom, the freedom of association is an American idea, and we talked about it earlier. I think it ought to extend to union members to their freedom to choose. If they feel the union is offering them value, they should join, and they're protected and absolutely ought to have that opportunity. But they're not. But if they choose not to, they should have that right. Plus the economic development. Plus the economic development opportunity. The economic development opportunity for this state is going to be huge. There's no question. We are not making lists of possibilities when companies look at Michigan. And back in 2006, I talked to companies who wouldn't even consider coming to Michigan as a consequence.
But here's the issue, though, Mr. DeVos. There's no empirical data that shows right now that, in fact, this legislation is going to create some sort of an economic stimulus all over.
That's not true. That's absolutely not true.
Where can you point to?
You look at Oklahoma.
What are the numbers in Oklahoma?
Job creation in Oklahoma over the last 10 years has continued to increase. I can tell you short term.
And there's a direct link. There's a direct link.
No, I can tell you also. I can tell you also in Indiana.
Okay, I'm glad that he brought up Indiana. I'm glad he brought up Indiana. I got their website.
The number of inquiries they've had.
Is there a direct link?
Hold that thought. We got to take a break here.
I got the website of Indiana.
We're going to a Ross Perot show and tell time. We need time to set this up. We'll be back with more Michigan Matters right after that.
I spoke to the majority leader and the speaker of the Indiana House of Representatives, and they both have said that of all the other things that they've done, right to work has changed the dynamic in the state, has changed the conversation with businesses who are considering Indiana in a brand new way. The same this is going to happen in Michigan. We are going to be considered in a brand new way. It will change this state, and I think change it for the better.
We don't want to be like Alabama, Mississippi.
From what he's showing us here with the tax incentives, the numbers do not bear it. I mean, I think there's no clear empirical data that shows it.
But Bankole, I choose to disagree with you. Here's why. I wrote for CBS. I did a national digital debate on unions, and Dick DeVos was involved, and James Hoffman. They went back and forth on it. And I wrote a story, talked with the economic development director of Indiana about this. They have empirical data. I don't know what you have on there because I didn't see that. But they did talk about 28 companies reaching out to them. They had so many millions of business brought in that specifically mention this. Or
and
is
where's
something
Indiana's economy now? Are people moving to Indiana? Is there a forced migration to Indiana? Is it the Mecca of the Midwest?
But the point is they have a little bit more empirical data.
You got to give a little time. It's only been a few months for crying out loud.
You know what?
These are long-term changes. And let's put this in context. 17% of Michigan workers are union members. Most people have already made their decision on freedom. They've already chosen not to join the union. So those who are in the the union have that choice,
So that's not a fair
they should be able to choose too.
The question here is, why is all of a sudden the government so interested in who becomes a member of a union, who doesn't become a member of a union? I know you talked about freedom to work is an inherent American idea, but public debate is an inherent American idea as well.
Yeah,
and there's been no public debate on this issue.
This was a bump for us.
20 years.
All right, wait, Bob,
We can't just dismiss it. There's been no public debate, no town hall meeting on this issue.
All right,
Within a
and there
couple
will
of
be a lot
days-
of town halls going forward because there's other workers up in Lansing that are still going to be part of the conversation.
After the effect?
Well, yeah, and but the bigger question is, where do we go from here? And I mean, when you have companies who are now looking at it, they're looking at Michigan. We know business CEOs do not like uncertainty, and as you mentioned, until this thing gets rolling in 90 days and see what other legal recourse comes out of this. In terms of businesses, because unions, we all know, when you've talked to someone, when they're looking at economic development type people who travel around the country and the world, they mention unions as one of the things that has been viewed historically about Michigan as detracting. So, Bob, do you think when you've been to China, you've been to other places, and you mentioned Michigan, you and I have talked about this before, even, in unions being somewhat of a detracting
But
figure.
what we've seen is that they've also seen now how they become great, valuable partners, and we've seen that. Go back to the 1970s when Chrysler was under, and they were having difficulty. They put a union, a UAW member on that board, saved it, went out of it. The past 2.5 years, the unions made a lot of concessions for the auto industry to be able to come back. It's value added. But we go back.
But in fairness, this isn't. But right to the freedom to work is not going to change those relationships. I suspect, and I think that you're going to see the vast majority of Chrysler employees and Ford employees continuing to support the union because they feel they're getting value and that there is a relationship.
But the unfortunate part is the union has to represent them.
My only issue here is freedom to debate.
Yeah.
But
and there's really been no debate on this issue.
And the truth is,
let's be realistic.
I mean,
freedom to debate is an inherent American idea. The debate in the public square, people are affected by this. The only debate has been in Lansing by lawmakers, not by the people who will be affected by this.
Even that.
The emergency manager law, which the 2 state chambers signed off on, which changes things as far as what is going to take place when a city or a municipality is in fiscal issues. And Bankole, your thoughts about what changed and the impact?
I think it has a huge impact. I think it really thrusts this whole crisis in Detroit into a higher level of urgency and seriousness. And we saw the back and forth between Mayor Bing and the City Council, which was not helpful. It was almost like Washington playing out in Detroit. And so I think it's serious because I think in this emergency manager law, there is different options in terms of mediation, bankruptcy, and so forth. So now, I think the city leadership has to be serious about addressing the crisis. I think, the back and forth between Mayor Bing and the City Council is not helpful.
Well, the other thing that took place finally this week is Barack Obama came to the city of Detroit for American Axle, announcement of more jobs out there at Chrysler.
Detroit Diesel, I'm
sorry. The first time he's been here since the Labor Day of 2011 here, and I know you both were out there for this event. And how do you think the state of Michigan is going to fare under Barack Obama in a second administration, Bankole?
I think it's going to fare well, but I think there's also going to be some sort of a fracture between the state government and the federal government, because when you, like, the issue, the freedom to work, as you call it, that's not the way the administration sees it. Obama calls it politics and nothing having to do with economics. So how does that play into future infrastructure with the federal government?
And that would be really unfortunate if the federal government were used in an issue like this. It's a state issue. It's a states' rights question involving a really modest proportion of Michiganians.
But the reality is that
I surely hope that he doesn't play politics.
That's true. I agree, but we cannot hide behind the technicality of state rights because labor is a pillar of the.
That's a little bit of an important technicality.
Yeah, labor is a pillar of the Democratic Party. Let's just be realistic.
Is there some conversation about Obama holding monies for the bridge? For the bridge, for example, for the Canadian bridge, holding back federal funds for that? That a possibility?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't think that will happen. Even the Michigan congressional delegation, all of them has said that they've urged the president not to engage in something like that. So I think he's going to take his cue.
Unfortunately, gentlemen, I hate to say this, and I hate to cut you off, but you know what? The clock has run out on all of us here. So I want to thank you all for being here, and enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you next Sunday for more Michigan Matters.